Hello, my name is Jeremy Pittman, Director of Grassroots Engagement at EDF Action, the advocacy partner of the Environmental Defense Fund. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching live on Thursday, September 3rd, 2020, or watching at a later date. EDF Action is building political power to address some of the most serious environmental challenges, including climate change. You can find out more on our website at edfaction.org or join us today by texting EDF Action to 52886. I'm thrilled to be joined today in conversation with Tina Catron, an organizer with our GreenTeam program in Michigan. GreenTeam is a fantastic partnership between EDF Action and the NRDC Action Fund, bringing together two of the oldest, largest, and most effective environmental organizations in the United States to build and visibly demonstrate support for climate action in key congressional districts around the country. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you for having me.
Tina, I was hoping we could start by asking you to share a bit about yourself and your journey to your work today with GreenTeam as an organizer in Michigan.
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. So I am born and raised in Michigan, and I studied marketing and communications in college, and that's what my career was for a long time, probably over 15 years. And I just wasn't, I just wasn't getting the satisfaction out of that type of work. And so I started to gravitate towards doing more volunteer work. Environmental activism has always been something that's been near and dear to my heart. And so I've always found myself volunteering or getting involved with organizations such as EDF Action or NRDC Action Fund, getting more involved with them. And so when GreenTeam came to my state, and more specifically my district here in Michigan with Haley Stevens, I jumped on the opportunity to start volunteering and to start getting involved and seeing, where these opportunities were for me to do more environmental activism. And the organizer who I worked with back in 2019 contacted me at some point late in the year and said that she was moving on. And I said, is this an opportunity that would be available to me? And she responded back and said, yes, absolutely. Let me send you the link and let's put you in connection with the right people. And I started with the GreenTeam in January of 2020. It was a great way to start the year. And I can honestly tell you that this has been some of the most rewarding work I've ever done in my entire life. And I've gotten to meet so many really wonderful volunteers and other organizers across the country, even our fellowship program. Over the summer, I got to meet some amazing fellows who are mostly college students or around college student age. And it has just been a wonderful journey and one that I hope to continue well into 2021.
Wow, that's so exciting. So you had a whole other career, and then you were volunteering with the GreenTeam program in your congressional district when an opening happened, and now you're a full-time organizer.
That's right. That's absolutely how it went. And I just feel really fortunate that it all worked out that way. It was a little serendipitous, but I'm glad that it was.
Well, that's so often the case with the best things. So you're working in Michigan's 8th and 11th congressional districts, mobilizing EDF members, NRDC members, and allies to take action on climate. What does that work look like on a day-to-day basis? What are you asking people to do?
Well, we're asking to do a number of things, and of course, things have made a switch. I actually at the beginning of the year, before quarantine, COVID quarantine, as we're all well aware of, it did look a little bit different. We were doing some in-person events where we were coming together to do postcard parties and phone banks. We were trying to put together a lot of training, all in anticipation for, the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. And it was nice because we were able to come together and really connect and talk about things that were important to our volunteers, putting them together with other volunteers to do grassroots efforts like postcards. And we did get a chance to do 1 or 2 petitioning events. We also had the opportunity to stop into some of our member of Congress offices. We were able to get to Haley Stevens' office and Alyssa Slotkin's office, both a couple of times, to drop off postcards and petitions, and to really connect our volunteers with our members of Congress. And then after, right around the end of March, when things all went virtual, then things made a pretty swift pivot, which to me was almost a blessing in disguise, because then we were able to connect with, we didn't have the geographic barriers anymore. Because if you know anything about how our districts are set up, 8 and 11, it's a pretty wide, geographically, it's a really wide area. And I mean, you could drive 3 hours from one end to the other. And so we were able to bring together groups of people that ordinarily wouldn't ever have come together. So, and we did a number of things. We moved all of our in-person events into virtual events. We had one of our star volunteers, Kevin Fisher, who is helping us with all of our virtual events, which we did once a month from March 28th through August. And we also did things like we set up an environmental book club, which was a whole nother group of people that even we had volunteers from Nevada and Colorado that were joining in on that, which they would have never come together if it was not virtual. And then we started doing other things like petitions, reaching out to folks and sending them EDF Action and NRDC Action Fund petitions. And then more lately, we've been talking with them about safe voting, giving them resources on how to vote safely from home. And so that's just kind of how it went, and it's been great.
Well, that's amazing. And so it sounds like so much of the work that you're doing and your colleagues, your Green Team colleagues around the country are doing is really about providing everyday people with opportunities to have their voice heard by their members of Congress. So you say you're collecting postcards, you're asking folks to sign petitions, and all these are being delivered to the members of Congress. And I think you mentioned even dropping them off at the member of Congress's office, having maybe some events with the members of Congress. Do you have any favorite stories from the work that you've been doing to provide opportunities for people to connect with Representative Slotkin, Representative Stevens? Any favorite stories?
Yeah, so one of my favorite stories is back in February when we were actually, or was it the end of January? It was sometime in the middle of winter, and we were at Alyssa Slotkin's Rochester district office here in Michigan, 8th district, and we were all there together. I think we had 4 or 5 volunteers, and we were in her office, and Alyssa Slotkin was not there herself, but her staff was there, and her staff in that office are amazing, and they're so receptive to so many different things. And we were there, and we're all in our Green Team shirts, and they said, one of the staff members said, hey, we're actually putting together an environmental committee, and if Green Team would like to be represented on that committee, here's an application, and why don't you talk to your volunteers and see how we can get one of your volunteers on this committee. And so, of course, our volunteers jumped at the opportunity. And so one of our volunteers who does a lot of work with Alyssa Slotkin's office already immediately volunteered and said, where do I sign up? And so I sent her the application. She sent it in, and then of course the COVID pandemic kind of took over everything, and so that was put on hold a little bit, but they did have their first roundtable meeting with Alyssa Slotkin in July, and it was very cool. She called me right after and said this was one of the coolest opportunities that we've had with Alyssa Slotkin, because these are all her constituents that are in this very small group talking about the environmental issues that are happening in their communities. And she just couldn't say enough good things about having that opportunity. And she was like, I just have to thank Green Team for putting me, in that position where I could apply for something like that. Because otherwise, she wouldn't have heard about it. So that was a really great thing. And we also did a town hall back in January as well, where a bunch of our Green Team volunteers from the Lansing area got together, and we all met and we went to the State of the District town hall that she held at East Lansing High School. And that was a really cool event too, because again, it was all of us together, supporting Alyssa Slotkin in her district, and it was noticed. And one of our volunteers did ask a question, and she answered that question, which was really exciting. So yeah, those are two of one of my favorite stories for sure. And unfortunately, we didn't get a whole lot of opportunities to meet with Haley Stevens during that time in person. But our volunteers have definitely been on town halls in their Green Team meetings virtually with her, and that's always good. And she always acknowledges that Green Team is on the call, so it's always nice to have that acknowledgement for sure.
Well, it's so interesting. You bring up that there were great activities that were happening when we were having in-person activities, before March, and since then it's been a lot more virtual. I know that with the Green Team activities, there were a lot of in-person activities, attending town halls, going out and collecting petition signatures at farmers markets, doing all of those sorts of things, and then after COVID hit, everything moved into the Zoom world and online world, and a lot more sort of virtual activities. But recently, I think things have come full circle, and you brought people back together for an in-person, but masked and socially distant in-person activity. Can you tell us what that was like, and talk about this arc of going from in-person to virtual back to in-person with caveats, I guess. Can you tell us about that?
No, you're absolutely right. It did. It came full circle, and it was something that we were all looking forward to for months and months. Because you get to know folks who are volunteering in your area. I know a few of our volunteers have become very good friends, like even outside of the Green Team, which I love. I love putting people together with, they're into the same things, and, it's been great. So, really through this whole pandemic, I think the thing that everyone is really missing is that in-person connection. And when we got done with our educational series that we did through Zoom, where we would have speakers come once a month, and we would take a deep dive into an environmental subject like solar panels, or we did one on land conservation, and then we did a panel with our fellows. So we were doing all these virtual things, and then Kevin Fisher and I were talking after the last event, and I said, what would you think about getting our core volunteers together for an in-person day of service? Do you think that would be something we could do safely? And we talked a little bit about it, and he said, yeah, I really think we should do this. And so we just put it out to our volunteers and said, would anybody like to meet us at the Stage Nature Center in Troy, which is it's in Haley Stevens district. And so many of our volunteers came back and said, yes, this would be amazing, and it would be easy to social distance, and we could wear masks, and we can do it early in the day so the heat won't be an issue. And so we all came together at the Stage Nature Center in Troy, and it was just, I felt like we were little kids, where we were just so happy to see each other and, just be together and then do an activity together. And we were all there in our Green Team shirts, and went out to the meadow, pulled some invasives, learned about what invasive species are and what their impacts are on ecology in our area, how they got there, how to get rid of them. And everyone walked away real sweaty, even that early in the day, but very happy. And so it was a really, it was a wonderful opportunity for us all to come full circle, just like you said.
So the Green Team's all about political action, but you were also able, with the volunteers who are most committed, to do some real environmental action at the local nature reserve.
Yes, yes. So
Amazing.
we wanted to create that balance because having those connections, it just makes our team stronger. So, obviously over the pandemic quarantine, we've been just looking for ways to do that. And then I think everyone just got to the point where they felt comfortable enough to do that safely, and it worked out great.
That's amazing. I love to hear that story. It brings hope to me, and I'm sure so many others who are still staying at home and thinking about how can we re-engage with our family, friends, and neighbors in meaningful ways. And so, thank you for showing the way on that. I appreciate it. You mentioned the environmental group, the roundtable that was put together by the Congresswoman there of constituents to think through key issues. I know we with the Green Team are really focused on climate action, and we know it's a really big issue. It needs to be addressed. We need federal action, and so that's why we're engaging folks and offering folks the opportunity to let their members of Congress know about the importance of climate action. I know there are other big issues in Michigan. Michigan is a Great Lakes state. We've heard about the pipes in Flint, Michigan. Well, what are you hearing when you talk to volunteers, when you engage folks and you're calling them to ask them to take action on climate? Are folks excited about the opportunity to take action on climate? Are they saying that's their number one issue? Are there other big issues in Michigan that folks are focused on?
Well, I mean, there's always a lot of issues. Obviously, here in Michigan, all the schools are going back virtual. So that's a big concern on a lot of people's mind. Unemployment rate is really high. So there are some big issues. But I mean, when you talk to EDF Action and NRDC Action Fund members specifically, of course, environmental issues always seem to be front of mind. And some of the big things that we hear about when we're phone banking and text banking, when people are talking, when we're making those connections about what are you most concerned about, line 5 is always big on people's minds. It's line 5 is something that could really damage the Great Lakes. And of course, that's our biggest concern. Our biggest environmental concern is our water. And so line 5 comes up a lot. Of course, the water issues in Flint are always a big concern, and protecting the infrastructure of other cities' water is also a big thing, because we learned from what happened in Flint, and we know that can happen in other communities, and especially communities with aging infrastructures. And so that's always something that comes up. Land conservation is a big one that we hear a lot about. You get builders that come in and clear cut for construction, whether it's residential or commercial. That's always a big thing. But I would say, protecting the Great Lakes is probably the thing that we hear the most about in line 5, most generally.
Makes sense in Michigan, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you think about the work you've been doing and the opportunities that people have to engage with their members of Congress and, really share their own stories and, their reasons for being concerned about the future, what are some of the things that you think have been most impactful? Are there particular ways that people have been able to connect, or tools that people have used that you could share with others that might be useful elsewhere as well? Yeah,
so we put together a environmental book club, and that honestly has, especially with that group, they keep saying over and over again every month when we get together to talk about our book of the month, they're like, we love this connection. We love that we're learning more and we can educate others. So that's a big trend, is that, and I say this quite often where, I say, be a resource to folks. Go online, go on social media, share your experiences about what you're seeing about climate change and be a resource. So that way, when someone sees something that they don't like in their community that's happening, maybe they come to you and say, what do we do about this? And so then maybe they're building their skills on how to be better organizers in their own community. And to me, that's where the most impact is. And then there's also a lot of Facebook groups out there that a lot of people, I feel that that's kind of a safe space for people to, have discussions about climate change and environmental issues that are going on not only in their communities, but around the globe. And so joining those Facebook groups, educating yourself, and just trying to connect with like-minded people because, like we say quite often in organizing, there's power in numbers. And the more people you can get together for something that you are passionate about, the more change you can make. And then you don't feel like you're so isolated. You don't feel like you're trying to steer this giant ship by yourself. You've got a lot of people there to help you and to lean on. And I think having that sense of community helps you mentally, and it helps you feel like you have more power over these things that you care so deeply about. So those are just some of the things that I think can be effective.
Well, so even in this time of social distancing and people being, in their homes, there's value in community and the ability to, connect with your family, friends, and neighbors, and people who are not yet friends but could be through environmental organizing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, just coming together with a group like GreenTeam, like I said, we have volunteers that are now good friends, outside of GreenTeam, and they're, they don't even live near each other, and they talk offline all the time about different articles that they're reading and sharing information, and that just strengthens the work that we're doing in all of our districts across the U.S.
Yeah, and speaking of that work, a lot of the work I think over the past few months in particular has really been focused on a couple of key moments. And one of those, it was the release by the U.S. House Select Committee on the Climate Crisis of a report, of 500 plus page report that lays out the roadmap for federal action on climate. And so the release of that report was a key moment for organizing. And then also the COVID moment, the fact that, we are facing this pandemic, there's challenge to the scientific authority in this current moment. There is economic challenge across the country and severe economic challenge with joblessness and a need to rebuild. And so we have an opportunity to think about the COVID, coming out of this moment, what kind of federal support is going to happen, and how we can maximize the benefit from federal spending for addressing the climate crisis. So, those were a couple of key moments. And I think that, you and your colleagues around the country were really engaging around those opportunities to connect with folks in your districts. Were there any experiences from that you would like to share?
Yeah, when the climate crisis report came out, I will tell you, in our districts, it was all the buzz. That's all anybody talked about for 2 weeks. Obviously as an organizer, it was our job to get that information out to folks, have them, familiarize themselves with that report, and also share it with people, whether it's EDF Action members or NRDC Action Fund members, sending it out to just constituents in their districts, fellow voters. And we, a handful of our volunteers even took it upon themselves to read the whole thing, or at least a pillar, which I know, I'm sure you've seen the report. It's huge. And so it was a big task, but a group of our volunteers did get together, and we did dedicate one of our environmental book club meetings to reviewing the pillars that each person chose. And really the whole thing was that our volunteers and our EDF Action and our NRDC Action Fund members, they wanted to familiarize themselves, because I think that it brought a great deal of hope to environmental legislation. And I think that by seeing all of these legislators come together, put this report together and release it on such a public and huge platform, it really gave people a lot of hope, and it showed some movement in our environmental movement, I guess you could say. And it was nothing but positive. And I'll tell you, some of our volunteers really dissected the heck out of it, and they just came back with nothing but good things to say about it. So you're right, that was a key moment. And I think that was when I feel, as an organizer, really brought our project to the next level. And so we were so happy about the timing with that. So yeah, it was amazing.
Well, and the report is extremely comprehensive. I mean, you said a daunting task to read it all, of course. Yes. I'm impressed that folks did that. But it's 500 plus pages, and it really lays out in concrete terms what we could do with federal programs and federal action to address the climate crisis. And you talked about the pillars in the report. It's because the report is broken down into 12 different areas of work that could happen, from transportation infrastructure to agriculture to our commercial real estate and building infrastructure. All of those things are included in there, and many, many more. So amazing, I think, to see so much attention and energy, a result of 18 months of hearings and expert testimony and research that led to this most comprehensive plan for federal action to address climate crisis. So really significant. I want to change the topic a little bit, though. You did not, when you were talking about yourself, mention that you are a mother, but I will mention it now. So I hope you don't mind. But I'd love to hear from you a little bit about whether that has any relevance for your work, for your decision to do this work. When you think about it, I know there are so many folks out there who are motivated by their children to take action on climate and to take action on the environment. We can look to our partner organization, Moms Clean Air Force. It's a group of moms taking environmental action, and there's so many ways that people are motivated by their own family. And so I'm wondering if that's the case for you, or if it's other things that got you more inspired.
Well, like I said, I mean, my whole life, environmental activism has always been something that it just struck me as a young person. I mean, I'm talking like 5th or 6th grade, where I started to realize, like, I remember very clearly, I think I was in 5th or 6th grade, calling the 800 number on the, I'm dating myself, but on the back of the Aquanet bottle. It was an aerosol can. And I remember calling them and saying, why are, I somehow knew, and this is pre-Google, like, I don't even remember how I got this information. Maybe my parents helped me or something, but I called them, and I called them out on the aerosol cans that they were selling, and knowing that there's no recycling at that time, and so, like, I just knew intuitively as a young person that there's a lot of things wrong that are damaging our earth. And I knew that. In the junior high, me and 2 of my friends set up the first recycling program that our school had ever seen. A lot of kids never even heard of recycling. And here we were putting out bins everywhere around the school. And so it really was something that struck me as a young person. And then now as a mom, holy moly, like, it terrifies me to think about the type of world that they're going to be living in when they're our age. And how would I ever look them in the eye and say, I didn't do anything? in fact, I contributed to the problem. That's not okay. So, just knowing that there is things that we can do, and that there are things that, we can do, as constituents in our congressional districts, and as parents, and as humans on this planet, there's a lot that we can do. And like I said before, there's power in numbers. And so by educating people and educating the kids really has been a big thing for me too. I know some of our my son's kids their friends have probably gone home with some weird comments that I've made to them when we're out in the community, or even if we just go walk through the nature center and we talk about the importance of preserving natural ecology in our communities, and why it's important, and why we should do certain things and take certain actions, and really trying to educate them and to make it more of a normal thing rather than an activism thing, if that makes sense. And as a mom, I have to take action on it. I just have to. And not only setting the example for them, but also doing something to make their world and their children's world better, are things that, they're really my highest priorities. And I just feel like this opportunity with GreenTeam, and to work with such amazing organizations like EDF Action and NRDC Action Fund, I feel like I'm in a really good position to do that. So I just feel really fortunate to be able to do this for my kids and the whole generation that's coming, up behind the millennials and Gen Z and all those, and really trying to provide a place to educate them. So that it is very, very important to me.
I appreciate that. And, I know that as I look at the landscape of environmental activism, and particularly activism on climate, so much of it today is being led by young people. Mm-hmm. We're really seeing that, we're following their lead because they're the ones who are going to be most impacted. They're going to live through the worst effects of the climate crisis. And so I don't know if you have anything in your work that where you've run across young people who are inspiring, or you see it in your daily life. But I know I'm inspired by the energy and activism that is coming out of schools and from young people every day. So I don't know if there's anything that you've seen in Michigan on that.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I've been in awe of some of the college students and young people that I've come in contact with, even when I was just volunteering with GreenTeam back in 2019. It's amazing to me what young people are doing and what they're taking action on these days. And I can tell you that when I was in college or in my early 20s, I definitely was not out protesting, and I definitely wasn't, doing environmental activism work. I was just trying to get through college and trying to figure out life. And then you have these young people who are still doing that, but they're also taking action. And it's been such an eye-opening experience. Even working with our fellows this past summer, the GreenTeam here in Michigan had 2 fellows from Michigan State University, and both of them were so incredibly impressive. And I'm excited to know that they're starting all of this. Like I feel like I started my real activism so late in life. And they're starting it early, and I feel that it's just going to spread. And you're right, it's the young people that are going to make the difference, and it is going to be their world. I mean, when you think about it, scientists are saying we have until 2050, right, to sort of turn this ship around. Mm-hmm. And my kids are graduating from high school in 2030 and 2032. So I mean, really, when you think about it, they are going to be our age when they hit that 2050 mark. And that scares me a little. But it's good to know that there are a lot of young people that are taking action. And like I said, I've been very impressed with what I've seen so far with groups of young people. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we need to be at net zero climate pollution by 2050 in the United States, which means we don't have that long to get started, right? Like
right.
the
Yeah.
work
And
has to
thank
be
you for
happening
articulating that, because I didn't really articulate that very well. So thank you.
Yeah, the time is short.
It is.
So, one of the things, the Green Team is an advocacy program. It's focused on, offering opportunities for people to, advocate with their members of Congress on climate. But, it would be, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that we're just 2 months away from a critical election. And while we're not going to talk about candidates, it's a big moment, right? I mean, surely people in Michigan are seeing this, right? Like, people are talking about the election in Michigan, I assume, every day now.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's really that's the thing that's on the front of everyone's mind right now. And I talk to a lot of folks right here from my neighborhood all the way to, folks in Lansing and other parts of our districts. And I think everyone is well aware how critical this election is. And so it's going to be really important to get out there and vote.
And I see we've got on the screen the edfaction.org/2020 link. That's our website where folks can go to check their voter registration status and confirm that they're registered to vote and take action. Most groups have similar sites, so feel free to Google, look around. But the most important thing is to make sure that you are ready to vote, and confirm that you're registered to vote, that you're still on the voter registration rolls, that you're going to be able to vote, whether that's in person or in early voting in person or by mail, depending upon your state. But really make your plan now to vote, to make sure that your voice will be heard in this year's elections.
Yeah, and here in Michigan, if folks need any help with voting or registration, michigan.gov/vote is where to go to get all those resources. So definitely go check it out if you have any questions about the upcoming election.
Excellent. So Tina, we've had a broad-ranging conversation. We've covered a lot of ground. I'm wondering, are there things that I didn't ask that you'd like to talk about?
I mean, not really. I think we covered a lot. It's like I said, this has been a remarkable experience to be able to work with folks here in my district and in District 8. We have a great group of volunteers. I just feel so fortunate to be here and to be able to bring all these folks together and to do something that's making an impact on the world. It's one thing to say this is, it's not happening because it's not happening in my backyard. But in a sense, it is happening in your backyard, but it's whether or not you take the time to notice that. And if you do, I encourage everybody to take action, whether it's in your own community or with EDF Action or NRDC Action Fund. There's definitely resources that are out there that can give you a sense of community with like-minded people and to really make a difference with climate legislation and environmental activism. And I just encourage people to get involved. Be the change you wish to see in the world is one of my favorite quotes. So I guess I could just leave folks with that.
Well, leaving folks with Gandhi is a great way to close. And of course, if folks are interested in taking action, there are lots of ways to do that. One way on your screen now, you can text EDF Action to 52886 to join EDF Action. We also want to encourage folks to join NRDC and NRDC Action Fund, our partners in the Green Team. It is really tremendous that we've been able to bring together the power of these two organizations to organize in key districts around the country. So thanks to everyone at NRDC and NRDC Action Fund. And Tina, thank you to you for your time today and for all your work over the past year as we build support for climate action in Congress. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And to all of you watching, thank you and have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. And thank you to all of you for watching.